Alright folks, in this episode we're going to take a look at some really advanced features associated with 3D modeling and surface modeling is a term that they often use to describe this. And what we're going to deal with are objects that behave more like clay than practical objects. To begin with, I'll just hit cancel here and start from scratch. We're going to make some interesting shapes. So we're going to start off by hitting new design. And normally we would start off with a sketch. I'm going to go to this button right here that says create form. The window changes and I can see these things like cylinder, box, sphere, those kind of things, quad ball. And let's say that I'll just take, well, cylinders would be fine to start off with. And it does have to select a plane to create it with, so I'll select the base plane there, and then I just click to create a center point. And let's say it's going to be about 30 millimeters. And let's say it's going to be about 80 is fine. Nothing major there. Maybe 90. Say 90. And you can see the process is very similar to a normal creation, except for the fact that you see these lines. Now, just one thing to note is that this is not a solid object. It is a shell, which means it has no wall thickness at this point. But it has these individual little panels that are your way to manipulate it. And in terms of manipulation, you've got a lot of options. So we're going to start off by just having some fun with this. And you can grab and manipulate all of these panels and the overall object changes with it. So for example, let's say I want to sort of stretch out this thing. Here's what I can do. I can click on a panel, right click and say edit form. And now I've got these grips. I can stretch it up. I can stretch it out, and you notice that the stretching can occur with actual dimensional information. And as I stretch, you see the other sides of it sort of pull along with it. I can rotate that edge a little bit and create a more curved feel to it. And I can hit OK, and it's changed. And now my object has been changed to match. So let's do that. Pause the video and go create a form here that is a cylinder, about 30 by 80 or 90, something's fine. Pull it up and then stretch that first panel. Remember, all you have to do is click on it, right click and say edit form, and then grab the grip and do that. Go ahead and pause the video and do that now. Alright, now another thing that's really cool is you don't actually have to just select one panel at a time, you can select multiple. So for this, I'm going to hold down my control key and I'm going to click and click and click. Then right click and say edit form, and now I have all of them behaving as one. So you can see me kind of pulling the part back, maybe stretching the part up, rotating this way perhaps, making it a twist, this way perhaps, or rotating it this way. By the way, don't forget you can always orbit when using this tool with a shift and push down of your roller button. And you can make some manipulations. So very simple approach. You can grab certain panels and just pull and stretch and do what you did on the front. Okay. So I'll stop that. So I've made a little change here. Next thing I may want to do is I may want to have more control. So yeah, I only have like so many panels here. Watch what happens when I hold down control, click several, and then I choose my modify panel and say subdivide. This essentially creates more panels to manipulate. Also note you don't have to just click on panels, you can click edges. And edges give you more ability to have more of a sharp manipulation. So I can right click and say edit form, and now I can grab, I'll orbit around just a little bit, now I can grab this edge and pull to a very sharp point that you can see right there. Maybe a little bit this way. And you can see that I can keep working my shapes as I see fit. If this has a little bit too much to it, I can always go back to it and say modify, subdivide. And I click on it first, there we go. And I can now pull out features and deal with this and this. Tell it to edit form. And now I can pull out that little edge just a little bit more. Almost like I'm shaping some sort of weird joystick, if you will. Okay, so let's do that. I want you to go ahead and pause the video and kind of reshape your object, sort of as I've done. Make some subdivisions, pull some things in and out, that kind of thing. Let's see what happens. All right, pause the video and do that now. All right, now you can also get wild and crazy. You can click on a certain panel and tell it to subdivide. Let's say we can even choose offsets. We can even choose like simple or exact. And 4 panels is fine. You can subdivide more if you want to. And this time I'm going to click on that point, not the edge, not the panel, the point, and say edit form. And I'm going to pull that point out. And that creates a whole new result in my object creation. Now, let's say I do, well, let's pull it out. Let's just pull it in just a little bit, just to give us a little bit of touch that direction. And now let's try this. And by the way, that point didn't show up until I actually subdivided the panel itself. I can get this one though. So click it, right click, edit form, and I'm gonna pull this whole section out just a little bit, just to give it a little flow in that direction. So you see, it just really behaves like clay. And so you can shape a solid object, or what will become a solid object, as a form and individually. And you'll notice that although we're doing some of this work, you're seeing me pull out like 10s and 20s and 30 millimeters. That's fine. There is a sense of control, and there's also a sense of art to it. So you can manipulate in a bunch of different ways. Now let's just say that I want to grab that point at the form, and I'm going to pull it back in just a hair. It's got a little bit too much for me that I don't like. Okay, I can do that. A little bit of a weird edge there. And let's say that we're going to do something else. Let's just do edit right here. Let's pull out this. And I think I want to do a little bit more individual. Hit cancel. And I'm going to click and click, and maybe click here and click here, click here and click here, and tell it to subdivide. Now I've got a whole bunch of little grips that I can reach in and grab individually. So I'll click this one, edit form, pull it out a little bit. Maybe I don't want a point, maybe I want to use an edge. We'll go edge, edge, and pull it out. Then we'll come down here and edge, holding down my control key to do multiple selections. We'll come back up here, this one and this one. Well, I have to deselect so I don't grab that bottom at the same time. There you go. Sometimes you gotta be real careful on what you're clicking on. And pull it back in a little bit. Now this one, I may click this way and then pull it up a little bit just to tuck it up. And so what I'm starting to do is almost like a hand grip that you might see on a joystick or some kind of weapon. And it's got a natural flow to it. I would probably need to come back in here and untwist what I've done with this little creation. Maybe pull it back up. Maybe select that whole panel and pull that back up. Probably get it uncurved down there. And that's how you can get something much more interesting and much more advanced in shape, is by using this subdivided concept where you can actually pull and change shapes and form. Alright, so anyway, let's do that. Let's have you pause the video, add or subdivide these panels up front, and then I want you to sort of change it and shape it like I've done on the screen here. Go ahead and pause the video and do that now. Awesome. Alright, now what do you do when this kind of thing ends up? You just take a picture of it, you save the file. And by the way, you do need to save these files, as this work sometimes will be required to be demonstrated on homework assignments that you've actually gone through the lecture material, so make sure you save that. But an object that is hollow is not really printable, so we have to find out something to do with our object to make it a solid at the end. Well, one way that a person can actually solidify this object or actually make it a solid without this open exposed top here, let's say we were done with the part, is use your modify fill hole button or tool here. And basically it's going to interpret what you're trying to do and fill it up. So if I click on an edge right here, it automatically assumes I want to cover up that hole, and I can say OK, or actually I can probably do more than one at a time. No, I can do one at a time, it's fine. Do that one, and then I hit it again, fill hole, click that one, and it's solidified down there across the bottom. Now that is one way to solidify the creation and sort of help it merge all together. And now we have what we consider a watertight object, which watertight is what we're going to need to actually be able to turn it into a 3D model for printing. Now, another way to sort of solidify your object is to use this tool called Thicken. And Thicken sort of works in the exact opposite of the shell command. So I'm going to hit Thicken, select my object, and you'll notice the direction of the arrow. The arrow is pointing in. I've got it set to 0.3 or -3. It could have been 4 if it goes the other way. You can thicken either way you want. Doesn't really matter. So if the external shape is exactly what I wanted, then I would probably want to go a minus, let's say 3mm wall thickness, maybe 2mm wall thickness. And it's going to go in. I hit OK, and we've got that. Now I can also do it the other way of saying Thicken. Let's say there's the object. Tell it to go more of a soft option this time. I can kind of check that out, see what I'm going to like about it. Hit OK, and that's pretty cool. You'll notice it creates the thickness that I'm wanting to, but it created to the inside of the part. And I can always undo that command. If I hit the right button, I can anyway. And I can go the other direction. So let's do Thicken. Select it. We're going to go 3 units the other way. And we'll say Sharp. And then OK. And you can see it there, changing the overall dimensions of my part. Now that creates a semi-solid at that moment that can be used. It's watertight within respect of itself. It's not actually solid up here, but that's okay. We can live without that. The overall creation does help us out a whole lot. So let's do that. Why don't you practice with that for a second. Go ahead and pause the video and use the Modify Thicken option to create wall structure. Pause the video and do that now, please. Alright, now another way we can solidify this thing is to switch to patch mode. Now you may have not have noticed, but when we were starting to work with these faces and edges, we were in the sculpt tool mode over here. We've got model, sculpt, and model is what we've done a lot of work with. Sculpting is where we are now, but patching is fixing stuff. So we're basically doing repair work to all these surfaces and faces. So I click on patch, and now you'll notice that your tools are slightly different, but a lot of things are still the same. So we got this create option, which is a patch create option. We can do extrude, we can do patch. We'll click on patch here, and I'm going to click on this. I can probably click on this edge or this edge. It doesn't probably matter a whole lot. Yep, there we go. Kind of solidifies it that way. And while I'm at it, I can flip it around underneath. Click on this edge. Now it's going to do one at a time. So we've got that. I do want you to notice though, it's not a solid object. You still actually have an opening in the middle, which may mean that by thickening it up may have caused me a problem. But we'll see. I'll flip it on over. I can hit create and patch. Click on this outside edge and it fills it up. And so we have our solid shell surface at that point. Now let's compare that to what happens if I hadn't thickened it to begin with. Back to where we were. Sculpt, patch, click on my edge there. You might actually need to hit the right button. Click on my edge there, hit OK. It looks solid, but as you can see, it's still thin walled. Create patch here, click it there, hit OK. Alright, anyway, that closes up the top. Alright, pretty neat little feature. Go ahead and pause the video and switch to patch mode and patch up the top holes in your part. Pause the video and do that now, please. Alright, so now that we've got it closed up, we might think, you know what, it's a solid now. I could STL it out and send it to a printer. And you would find out though that at this point in time, if you send it to STL or send it to a 3D printer, it wouldn't be able to process. It's not a solid at this point. There's one other step that we need to do to sort of finalize it and move it from this sculptable mesh tool to a solid body that we can actually use for printing and coding. So here's what we do. We use a tool called Stitch. And as you read, it says join surfaces to make them a single surface or a solid body. So I'm going to hit Stitch. I'm going to select the whole body. And it's got a tolerance of 1 millimeter. We don't have to worry about what that means right now. We just need to understand that it's got two surfaces selected. And we want it to turn into an object. So we hit Stitch and hit OK. And now it almost looks like we're good. Let's find out if we are or not. A quick and easy way to see if this is going to work, see if it's become an object that we can work with, is to use our 3D print, select the object here, hit Preview Mesh. And by the way, when you actually do send a file out as an STL, that's essentially what you're doing, is you're creating a mesh. And it does look like it is an external mesh. Except it looks like I missed the bottom. Maybe I didn't close up the bottom like I thought it did. I may have hit backspace too many times. Or undo. Let's get rid of that stitch. Okay. And yep, that's what happened. I didn't close up the bottom. Alright, so create, patch. Click that. Okay. Now I'm going to go in and click this, select it all, tell it to stitch. Hit OK. And now let's try that conversion to an STL again. And well, I should have said hit preview, sorry. Let's do that. Preview mesh. It's thinking about it. And this just saves you a step of like going into another program and finding out you made a mistake. Hit OK. I'm going to save it. Right there's fine. Yeah, I'll replace it. That's cool. Now we'll open it with Mesh Mixer, and sure enough, we have a mesh file. Now, the real question is it going to make a solid object? Is it like a true object that our slicing code can work with or not? So let's find out. I'll close that down and I'll bring it up in that STL in a slicing program such as Simplify. Alright, here we are. Here's our object in Simplify. I'll double click it to, let's get it oriented a little bit better. It is a unsmooth object. I don't have like a really great surface to start off with, but that wasn't our point. We prepare to print, and let's see what it's going to make. Oh, look at that. Sweet. It's creating it, and it's got to infill the rest of the inside, and it's making support material. And I could go back and of course tell Simplify to increase my shell count. Let's set that to 4. Print again. And we have a stronger object. Alright, so keep that in mind. When you create things and you're using these sculpts and patch tools, you have to make sure that it's stitched together at the end before you can actually send the file out to be an STL file out to actually, or any kind of print file out to be done. You have to make sure that's finalized, and you have to go double check yourself. Many times we have students turn files in, they're only shelled and weren't actually printable files. Alright, well, that's enough for that right now. We've gone pretty far. Here's what I want you to do to finish up. I want you to basically save this file, but it would benefit you to go ahead and do what I've done. Make sure you patch up all your openings, and then use your stitch tool to create the solid, and then use your 3D print tool with the 3D print button unchecked, and save an STL file somewhere to your work. And keep that file handy. We may require it for a homework assignment. Alright, well, good luck, and we'll see you.